Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. Today's guest is David Schwerin. He's an author of 3 books, Conscious Globalism, Conscious Capitalism, and most recently, Know Your Soul, Bring Your Joy to Life. Today we'll be talking about connecting with spirit, channeling, and how his latest book was written with the help of his spirit guides. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Conscious Globalism, Conscious Capitalism to Know Your Soul. How did you get interested in the spiritual, esoteric ideas?
Well, this actually started when I started my career, which is a number of decades ago. I was interested in finance and investments, which is what my career initially was, and I was also interested in understanding ancient wisdom. So those two areas of interest really consumed most of my time up until maybe the last 20 or 30 years when I focused almost completely on the spiritual side of things.
So the journey did start several decades ago. When did you learn how to channel? How did that start?
Well, I guess I should bring the story forward a little bit. After 20, 25 years in business, I was getting a little tired and bored, and I had an event in my life that was life-changing to some degrees. It pushed me towards finding answers to things that were confusing me. I didn't know where to turn, and I ended up going to a person who said they were a healer who had an office across the street from my office. I didn't really know what a healer was, but I thought I would take a chance and see if I could get some questions answered. My brother passed when he was 37, and it was very shocking, and I wanted some answers. So I went to this healer, not knowing what to expect, but after some initial sessions with this woman, she started to channel information to me, a wide variety of subjects. I was skeptical at first. I really didn't know what to make of it. But as time went on, I saw that the information I was getting was accurate and turned out to be very helpful. So I continued on this path while I was finishing up my work career. After a year or two of working with this woman, she channeled information saying it was time for me to sell my business. That was a bit of a shock. I hadn't planned to do that, although I wasn't happy with what I was doing. So it took a little time to make that adjustment, but it ended up what I did. I sold the business, not knowing what was ahead of me. Just waited to see what would happen. And it wasn't too long after that I was encouraged to write my first book, which was Conscious Capitalism. That also was a bit of a shock because I hadn't planned to write a book and really didn't know what to write about. But things came to me. The book was published in 1998. About that time, or maybe a little before then, the woman I was working with was no longer going to continue with her practice, and she suggested that I go see someone to learn about channeling. Again, like most of my story, I didn't really know what to make of that. I hadn't thought about doing that. But her advice had been so good, the information I was getting had been so accurate that I decided, all right, I'll give it a shot and see what happens.
What kind of healer was this woman? And at what point did you start to actually think, hey, maybe this isn't just all hokey and this might actually be real information?
She was an energy healer. She was a Barbara Brennan healer. I don't know if you've ever heard of Barbara Brennan, but she has a healing school. She had graduated from there, and she had opened her channel and was able to bring through information. I can remember the added credibility to what I was receiving was that I had some physical problems, and I was able to get information about how to heal them, how to correct them. It wasn't something that happened immediately, but if I worked at what they said, it turned out to be very helpful. This is almost 30 years ago, so I don't remember all of them in detail, but there was a lot of good evidence that was provided to me that lent credibility to what I was hearing and learning.
That is important because when people hear accounts of channeling and connecting with spirit guides and other mystical experiences, they're often very skeptical, and they ask, how do they know this is not just our imagination? It seems like you had some validation very much in the way a real medium can validate certain things that only that person, the sitter, would know.
That's correct. This continued for the next 30 years, getting more and more validation through various things I was asked to do or the situations that came up. So it's been very clear to me.
Tell us some more about the spirit guides. You've written 3 books so far, right?
Correct.
Know Your Soul, Bring Your Joy to Life was apparently inspired by your spirit guides.
The woman that I was working with to learn channeling has worked with Archangel Michael for a long time. And because I have worked with this woman for now 24 years, I've gotten to know her spirit guides pretty well, including Archangel Michael. Back about 8 years ago, maybe it was, Archangel Michael was offering a course, a channeled course on deepening your connection to your soul. And that interested me, and so I signed up for the course. It's not really a course, but a program.
Who was offering this course?
Archangel Michael. It was channeled through the woman I was working with.
Really?
But it was Archangel Michael who was teaching the course.
Wow, that's very interesting. Okay.
He started offering this course, and I decided I would take it. So for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been doing that. And I think it started out weekly, and then it moved to a monthly session. And he would help us in various ways, energetically connecting to our soul, and give us various experiences that would help open us up and make us more receptive. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, he asked the woman whose name is Diana Munz Chen, she's my co-author, asked her and me to write a book about the soul after I had studied with him. So that was the impetus, really, was his encouragement to write a book about the soul. He wrote a foreword for the book, and he helped us with information to put in the book. So that's how the book started, and where a lot of the information, not all of it, but a lot of it came from.
Your experience with Archangel Michael, which is a pretty heavy experience from what it sounds like, was it a clairaudient experience? What was the transmission like? What did it feel like? I know people are going to be asking, how did you know it was actually him?
Okay, well, he doesn't have a voice, so he has to have somebody channel the information.
Okay.
The way you know that something is happening, he'll tell you, I'm going to increase the energy in your third chakra, or increase the energy and make the connection to your soul much deeper. And you can feel that increase in energy is dramatic. It's not just a questionable thing. Often when you receive energy from Michael, you can't sleep that night. It's so strong, it just continues. That's the validation. Now, can I swear who's sending the energy? No, I can't, but I don't really need to. I've done this long enough. I've had conversations with him. Channeled conversations, personal conversations. I've had some things that I needed his help with, and he's always willing to help. And he's become one of my guides. So I have a healing session with him almost once a month. It's as real for me as it is talking to you is real.
Wow. Now, because of these experiences, before they started happening, did you consider yourself more of an intuitive person or not really? And has that changed, if at all?
I don't consider myself psychic to any great degree. I don't know what level my intuition is, to be honest with you. I still have work to do to open up some of my psychic centers. Unlike Diana, who is the woman who does the channeling, hers are wide open and she is very psychic.
Do you think that anyone that has the desire to open up said channels, to connect with spirit guides and ascended masters, do you think anyone can do that, or do they need some kind of innate ability?
We all have that ability. It's something we have to develop, and like any skill, you have to work on. It doesn't happen overnight. I've also been channeling Hermes. Hermes is an ascended master, and he's one of my guides. I channel him. I do that almost every day.
I've had several people come on recently that claim to channel Jesus, Buddha, Yogananda. What are your thoughts on that?
You can channel anyone. I've channeled aliens. I've channeled my guides. I've channeled ascended masters, channeled angels and archangels. So anything is possible.
So what's the difference between channeling and being a sitter in a mediumship session? Have you done a mediumship session at all?
I have. I haven't done it for a while. Right after my brother passed, I went to a medium to connect with him. But since 1998, I have been having monthly sessions with my guides and higher self. And so I don't feel like I need a medium anymore. I get whatever I want.
To those of us non-experiencers, myself included, is there a similarity between channeling and a mediumship session, or are the lines of distinction sometimes blurred?
There's a connection. You're bringing information in from spirit. People have different ways of connecting with spirit, depending on what senses you have opened and what your psychic ability is. You'll move in one direction or another. Neither is wrong or bad. It's just that we're all different.
You've had quite a few spiritual experiences over the past 24 years. Can you tell us more about those?
The question is where to start.
There's no right or wrong way to do this. I think a lot of us like to hear the experiences because there are those in the intuitive community that believe a lot of these experiences are all connected.
Well, the one thing that might stand out for some people is, I guess, 11, 12 years ago, in one of my sessions with my spirit guides, in the very beginning of the session, I was told, you're going to have an experience that's a little bit different. That is, you're going to go through a reincarnation in the same body, also called reincarnation in the same lifetime. I didn't know what it was. I wasn't expecting to hear that, but I have built up such confidence in what I'm getting that I said, all right, that's my next step, I guess. What that really is, we all come into a body and we all have a purpose, a task that our soul would like us to accomplish in this lifetime. After you've fulfilled that task, the soul has a choice. Do you want to continue the incarnation, or do you want to start it over again? Do you want to bring the personality back and have another incarnation in a different venue, different focus? So in this case, my soul decided that I should continue in this lifetime. The only thing is that my task would be somewhat different than it had been. I had completed what was being asked of me as far as the task is concerned. So I had completed some things. I hadn't completed everything. And so the idea was I should stay around and complete these other projects. It is a fairly lengthy process, the reincarnation. It can last for a year or more, maybe a few years. I don't think it's ever less than a year. We're all energy. That's all we are, is energy. The physical body is energy, but it's condensed so it looks like it's solid and real, or physical. So the reincarnation is to take the energy body and reconfigure it. Your physical body doesn't have to change. It's your energy that is changed. And we all have what Michael calls a line of purpose. All of this is in my book in more detail than I'll be able to give you. The Know Your Soul book has a fairly lengthy description of this whole process. Your energy system, which is sort of like the hanger on which you exist, like a clothes hanger, has to be dissolved and a new one reestablished. This is the process that I went through, and it's lengthy. I got a description of what was going to be happening with this process. Every session, they would say, oh, the next step is such and such, and here's what will happen, and here's how it will affect you. And
with this experience, you're saying you had a reincarnation in the same body. So it's not like you had a near-death experience and you went into what Dr. Michael Newton used to call life in between lives. This is while you were still alive.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
All right. So it was a transformative process, but it wasn't like it was done in one day. It just happened.
This happened
over
a year and a half, 2 years.
All right. Now, speaking of reincarnation, do you have past life memories?
What do I know about past lives? I often ask my guides if I have a past life connection with X, Y, or Z, because these are people in my life that I'm curious about, want to know whether I have some past connection or whether it's a new thing, and whether there's any karma between me and this other person that needs to be worked out. So I ask my guides often whether X, Y, or Z and I have had a past life. With no hesitation, I'm given what I need to know. I'm told, number one, whether we have any karmic stuff that we have to clean up, and I'm told what our relationship has been. So I guess there have been at least a couple dozen people in my life where I have found that I have a past life connection, and it rings true. Once I know that, I say, oh, that's why I'm doing this or that or the other thing. This is why we're reacting as we're reacting. It's only given to you if it's going to help you. First of all, you have to ask, and second of all, if it's something that is not needed, then they won't be told.
That's the first time I've heard that, and it does make sense. So just to clarify that, you were only given information by your guides about past lives in this case, if it's going to help you.
Correct.
If you don't need it, there's no point in even bringing that up or bringing that forth.
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Very interesting. Since you've had some experience and some exposure to this, did you have a glimpse of that in between, that life in between lives, or that space in between incarnations, where apparently there's a council of elders, sometimes a life review, and you get to pick your parents and pick a body. Did you see any of that or not necessarily?
No, I really can't say that I did. It wasn't necessary. I believe all that. I've had enough experience to know that we have past lives and that there is an in-between period, and you do pick your parents and all that stuff. I know that's accurate, but I haven't had experienced it per se.
Just by connecting with spirit and the channeling experiences, the whole cycle, the death, reincarnation, life in between lives, and the new life, that sounds to me like a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
People are interested. There's a lot of good material out there.
There really is. I had an email today from a past guest speaker. It's a couple. They have experience with a lot of the Ascended Masters. Apparently, they got a transmission from Nikola Tesla, which I think these days the Tesla CEO is in the news so much. I thought that was interesting. I was tempted to think, I can't verify any of this, but the more and more I hear about it, I start to think maybe that is real. But you can see why a lot of us are skeptical. Like, how do we really know that's really Tesla?
Believe
right?
me, I started out as skeptical as anyone. It's only through actual experiences that you gain the confidence to know that it's real.
Good point. So the experiences, what are the practical things you've learned, and what, even us non-experiencers, what can we glean from all this?
Well, my journey, or my soul's journey really, has been to work in China. And I've been guided every step of the way. My work is basically to introduce some ideas to China. And my books were published in China. Whenever I go to China, before I leave to go, I think, God, I don't know how this thing's all going to fit together, and how I'm going to meet him or her, or how I'm going to solve this problem, or what kind of problems will occur. And everything goes off of clockwork. You just know that there are beings out there who are making arrangements. Advanced people, so to speak, who are out there taking care of everything. And I have been told that Archangel Michael goes with me just to make sure that everything goes satisfactorily. So that's one of the practical aspects of this whole thing, is that I've been guided to do something of meaning. For instance, I introduced through my book and my visits there, I've been there 9 times now, social responsible business concepts, now called ESG, or corporate social responsibility. I had the opportunity to speak to leaders of the Communist Party about it, and I didn't know what to expect. And they embraced it. They put it in their bookstore. They plastered my book and face on the largest bus line in China. It was amazing. The book was a bestseller in China. So this doesn't happen by accident. Nothing happens by accident, but this is a concrete examples of how things that seem incomprehensible get done, not by me, but by those who have a lot more power and overview.
Nothing happens by accident, and there are no coincidences.
Right.
Right. And can we assume that all of us are guided? I've heard countless number of times that we all have spirit guides from day one, and they're supposedly guiding us even though we can't see them or feel them. You believe that?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't believe it initially. It's only through a lot of experiences and a lot of time that it became clear to me.
So your journey, I believe, started with a visit to an energy healer. The reason I bring that up is because I'm hearing that as an entry point to the intuitive world, the unseen world, by many people, Reiki healers, different types of energy healers. We've interviewed quite a few on the show. Do you think that is a practical entry point for someone that wants to explore this further? Someone who's listening right now, perhaps, and saying, I want to hang out with Archangel Michael, and I want my spirit guides to guide me. I want to know that they're there. Do you think that's a good place to start?
It's certainly one good place. It's not the only one, but it's certainly a good place.
Okay. So what are some other suggestions or entry points for those of us that want to explore this a little bit further?
Well, the first thing I would say is, number one, you have to really want to do this. You have free will. We all have free will. The spirit world recognizes that and doesn't interfere. If you don't express the interest, the sincere interest in this sort of thing, you won't get the connections that you might like. So that's the starting place. Then how you actually navigate this is different for everybody. Healers are one way. You can go and there are different courses that will help open you up and make the connection. Your guides are waiting for you. They're anxious to see you. Because you have free will, you have to make the first step. You have to say, this is something I really want. Not superficially, but something that you really feel strong about and that you want to do it. And a way will be found. There's a lot of different ways, and probably as many ways as there are people.
Wow, that's a lot of different ways then. With your experiences, it's obviously changed how you view spirituality. What about religion? Your views prior to this and afterwards, has that changed at all or not really?
Sure, it's changed to some degree, but not dramatically. Although my parents were very religious, I was not drawn that direction. I guess because I found that religions tend to separate people. They tend to focus on my religion is better than your religion type of thing. That turned me off. Spirituality is about connecting and about we're all connected and all one. And no one's better than anybody else. That was more in keeping with the way I felt and thought. That was just reinforced over the years with my experiences.
Your website is consciousthinking.com, correct?
Correct.
And that has a lot of your work.
It's focused more on my work in China and business. There is some on spirituality, but when you're working in China, you have to be careful because the authorities are always looking over your shoulder. So I always focused on practical stuff and kept the spiritual aspects to my private life.
I can't really blame you for that. So it seems like your world, your experience, your website for that matter, is probably a good magnet for people that are firmly in the business world but want to explore spirituality. The breadth of your work spans quite a bit of ground, from conscious globalism, capitalism, and now your latest book, Know Your Soul, Bring Your Joy to Life. So what we can take away from this, that A, we're all connected, which I hear quite a bit, and B, our guides are there for all of us and they're waiting.
Yep,
Excellent.
absolutely true.
All right, David, thanks so much for joining us today. Your website will be in the notes and the transcript as well. Anything else you want to tell our listeners?
I would just say the Know Your Soul, Bring Joy to Your Life is something that anybody who's interested in this area will find at least interesting, if not even more than that. So it's a very short book. It's got a lot of good information in it. People who gravitate towards it really like it. Columbia University is using it in one of their courses. So it's gaining some reputation, and I would recommend it highly.
Excellent. And that is obviously prominently featured on your website, correct?
It's on the website, and you can get it at Amazon or any other bookstore.
Okay. You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. You can also leave us a review on iTunes as well. For more info, please go to closertovenus.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.